Hello, church. We're looking at 2 Peter chapter 2 today for our daily Bible reading. Here we see Peter bringing to mind the past. The present reality that Peter is even writing this letter for is to encourage the church to be watchful, to be mindful, to be protective of the truth of Christianity. Peter's addressing the knows that there's people in the church now, people that will be coming to the church that will try to deceive the church and try to pull them away from the truth of the gospel, that you can only be saved through Christ alone, that you're to live a life that is pleasing to God by self-sacrifice and service and devotion to God and to others, not to being selfish and to be greedy. And so as he's speaking of the present, he's going to recall for these people's minds the past. And so he looks at several Old Testament examples of God's righteous judgment on evil, and that God is not going to let evil slide by. And he hasn't done it in the past, and he won't do it in the future, which is what we'll look at tomorrow. So, church, be encouraged, whatever trials or tribulations you are going through. Verse 9 speaks of this comfort to the church, right? After speaking of God's judgment on the world and how God still saved Noah through it, he concludes this with verse 9, and it says, "Then the Lord knows how to rescue the godly from trials and to keep the unrighteous under punishment until the day of judgment." So recall from this past experience in biblical history where God flooded the world in righteous judgment of a wicked people, but he saved Noah, the righteous. Even though he was the only one, he was still saved. And so we can be comforted by this fact that, once again, God is a rescuing God, and he can provide rescue for us regardless of the trials that we are going through. Just have faith in him. And just as God is righteous to save us from the trials, he's also righteous to bring judgment and punishment and condemnation on those who are doing evil. And so as we look at the past, we see how God has worked. We know he can help us in our present and ultimately in the future as well. So take encouragement, church, wherever you're at, that God is in control, and let's learn from the past.